Dev Africa Development Advisors. I consult for a company called Dev Africa Development Advisors. Yeah, so what do we do? Consulting for international development. That's basically what we do at Dev Africa. Aside that, it's projects. I'm sure you listen to my profile, right? I like to describe myself as a very diverse project manager. I have worked across industries. I've worked across all kinds of projects that you can possibly think of. So it's a pleasure to join you all tonight. I know that we're going to, there's something that you can be very assured of tonight is that we're going to have a very interactive session. I like that I'm seeing a lot of young faces. I'm also a young person myself. And I trust that I'm going to learn so much from these conversations because, yes, you all are project leads as well. So I look forward to a very engaging session. If you're having a gloomy day, please sit up. Sit up. If you need to brush your hair, brush your hair. If you need to grab a cup of water, grab a cup of water. There's going to be a lot of interactions. You are going to speak. Nobody's going to be silent on this call. So let's have that heads up, right? We're going to be doing a lot of conversations, interactions. That's how to keep the room alive. That's how we exchange knowledge. That's how we understand basically what we're doing. And that's largely how it works across project management, right? Project managers have all manner of skills. They're like a life engine of a variety of skills. But the most important, as far as I am concerned, is communication. So we're going to be doing a lot of communication on this call, right? So the first way to what's the word now? Let's do a quick icebreaker, right? I'm going to randomly call on people on the call to say something, right? And okay, it's okay if you can't turn on your video. I understand that it's late, people are probably in their pajamas and stuff, but it will be good to hear something. What are your expectations from this call? Tell me one or two things about the work that you're doing or an interesting project that you're working on at the moment, and we'll take it up from there. But before we get to that, please give me a second. I need to quickly check up something I'm doing that might disrupt this call. Let me be sure that there's nothing to disrupt the call. Just give me about 30 seconds.
Okay, all right, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. To all the team leads that are on the call, do well to invite your respective team members to join. We've started, and I assume anytime from now, the room might be full for others to join. But this session is also recorded on YouTube for those who might want to rewatch over and over. So just like she earlier mentioned, get prepared and get your notepad and whatever you need to ensure that you have a lively session this evening. Please just get and put that in place. All right.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Emmanuel. So let's hear from Uche. Uche Jules. Hi, Uche. How are you doing? What are your expectations from this call? What projects are you currently working on that is keeping you busy? What's the interesting thing that has happened to you since the beginning of the year? Something quick in 60 seconds or less. Talk to me, Uche.
Hi, good evening.
Evening.
Okay, so I didn't really get your question. I didn't really get.
Oh,
Can
so
you
it's not
repeat
the
what you said?
question. We're having an icebreaker. I'm trying to understand my audience, right? So I'm saying, talk to me about a project that you're working on, and tell me what your expectations are from this conversation.
Okay, so prior to now, I wasn't really I didn't know about this meeting, but I saw the link and I quickly joined. I just stepped in now and I'm from work and I'm just trying to settle down, but I said, okay, I need to join.
Yeah. Trying to catch breath. All right, thank you. That's very understandable. Thank you, okay. Uche, and well done. Who else? Oluwatomi Dada. Hi, Oluwatomi. Hi, Oluwatomi. Are you on the call? Okay, Oluwatomi is not on the call.
Yeah, he's there. He's there. He just
hi, Janet.
I think his mic. Oluwatomi, you can unmute your mic. And JB and Mayowa, please, you can grant whoever that wants to speak the permission to unmute their mic.
Oh, yeah, Mr. I just need one or two people to talk to me before we start the
Oluwatomi, you
session.
can
It's
unmute your mic
important.
and speak.
Oluwatomi, Anita, Janet, who wants to go first? Your team leads though, so I don't think or I don't see any reason why speaking to me should be a problem. So let's talk. Let's talk. What are your expectations from this conversation? How has it been with your teams? Just say something, 60 seconds or less.
Okay, Oluwatomi, if you can unmute, I think I can call on Adebayo to unmute. I know that he's the team leader and he's also a co-host. So we can also we can enable each and everyone to speak. I think that will make it easier for people to unmute themselves. But Adebayo, you can unmute your mic and let's hear from you first.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hi.
I don't know if I'm audible enough.
You're very
Thank you
clear.
for coming, Reinhard. So good to meet with you. And yeah, I definitely trust that there's going to be a lot of unpacking tonight. And I'm ready to just jot away. Yeah. So my name is Adebayo Joseph, and I'll be leading the project SDGs Advocate Program. Of course, I was part of it last year, and this year I look forward to it being a very, very impactful program because it has been, and a lot of people have been actually benefiting from it. And it's a program that we run in SDSN Nigeria, and it cuts across the 36 states in Nigeria. And of course, due to the magnanimity of the program, it's a massive one. This year we had about 3,400 people apply for that program, and we will be accepting nothing less than 2,500 advocates. Yeah, and it's going to run for 4 months. So, master classes, clinical projects. Okay. So it's going to be really, really exciting and interesting. So definitely is something that I'm looking out for.
All right. Thank you so much, Adebayo, for sharing that experience, and well done. I've worked on projects across Nigeria, and I can tell you that it's not a walk in the park when you have to do all 36 states simultaneously. So well done to you and your team. I think we can get straight into the conversations now. A few ground rules. If at any point in time you cannot see my screen, please drop a message in the chat. If at any point in time you cannot hear me, please drop messages in the chat. If you do have questions, please note them. We have a dedicated time for questions and answers at the end of the session. If you think that you would not remember that question at the end of the session, you can type it in the chat, and then we'll go to the chat at the end of the session to address all of your questions. Please confirm that you can see my screen before I proceed. Am I being heard? Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen. And I don't know if there is a way you can enable a full screen.
Yeah. Oh yes, enabling full screen. That's better actually.
Yes, fantastic. You can see your screen now.
Just give me a second. I'm sure where to find this. Does this work? Not exactly.
Or well, if that doesn't work, I feel it's still more very clear. It's still more very clear. You might just have to go and share through
Yes, full
Zoom, and
screen.
that might take a lot of time. So, but we can still see clearly now. And thank you. I already received the presentation slides as well, so we can
Okay,
run.
so
Yeah.
do you want to share on your end?
No. You
I'm not
can
sure
share
whether my
from. It's
screen.
fine now. You can write down now with this presentation.
Okay,
All right.
thank you, Emmanuel. So yeah, so what the topic is leadership and innovation in sustainable project management. Right, I understand that everyone on this call is a project lead or a team lead. It means that you're leaders in your own rights, so to speak, and you're going to be assuming a lot of leadership roles in relation to the sustainable development goals and project management, which is why I've come up with this topic: leadership and innovation in sustainable project management, right? And the sub theme is driving sustainable solutions for the SDGs. I know that your focus as a team is the SDGs. So we're going to be looking at the nexus between leadership, innovation, sustainable project management, and sustainable solutions to achieve the SDGs as well, right? What are our learning objectives? They're very simple. Three basic learning objectives, right? First is to understand the concept of leadership and innovation for sustainable project management. Secondly, we're going to look at principles of project leadership in the context of the SDGs. Yeah. And then finally, we're looking at understanding the tenets of innovation in projects management for optimal benefit delivery of all the sustainable goals. This means that we're looking at a what's the word? A jigsaw. So picture a jigsaw, right? And on that jigsaw, we have leadership, we have innovation, we have project management, and we have the SDGs. So all of this is what we're putting together tonight that we're going to talk about. We are going to discuss, because like I mentioned earlier, it's going to be a very interactive session, and it won't just be me doing all of the talking. At some point, we'll have breakers. I'll listen to you, you listen to me. We talk about our experiences as it relates to things that I'm talking about, and things like that. So yes, I'm talking about our learning objectives, key definitions, right? First off is leadership, right? There's a general understanding of what leadership is. I strongly believe that everyone has some idea of what we mean when we say leadership. But for the sake of this conversation, right, I've been able to coin a definition that suits our learning objectives, right? So leadership as suited for this conversation would refer to the art of empowering and influencing individuals towards collectively achieving a shared goal, that is leveraging individual strengths and nurturing a culture of continuous improvements which transcends conventional boundaries. Now let's look at the keywords here. The keywords here for me are empowering and influencing. That's a keyword. Collectively achieving a shared goal. That's another key phrase. And then continuous improvement is a key phrase as well. And then transcending conventional boundaries, right? Those are the keywords there. Now you see that I have used empowering or influencing. I belong largely to the school of thoughts that believe that as team leads, as project managers, as representatives of teams, and as people that want to make global impacts in the work that we do, it's extremely important that we learn to lead with influence and not necessarily authority. Right. So I belong to the school of thought that says, as much as possible, lead people with influence. It's easier to lead people with influence. It's easier to get people to commit and give all of their best when you're leading them with influence as against when you're leading with authority. Right. So empowering people and leading with influence, that's clearly understood, I believe. Collectively achieving a shared goal. It means that, yes, you lead the team. Yes, you are the one that is talking to the audience. Yes, it's your face that we will see on most of our communication materials. But you need to understand that whatever you're achieving is a collective responsibility. There's a collective force that is driving us to achieve this shared goal. So you need to pay attention to that team that you're leading towards a shared goal. Right. Another key phrase that I mentioned earlier, I say nurturing a culture of continuous improvement. It means that the improvement process is unending. There's no peak. When it comes to continuous improvement, there's no peak. Like there's always room for improvement. There's always room for improvement in the leadership of the work on the team that you're working with. There's always room for improvement. And then finally, transcends conventional boundaries. That's the place of innovation in this conversation, right? To say, oh, when it comes to innovation, things are novel, things are new, it's largely things that you've largely not heard about. We're doing things in very, very new ways. We're doing things that transcend conventional boundaries. So if the conventional way of doing something if the conventional way, yes. So I'll give a quick example, right? The conventional, when you think of, oh, I need to charge my phone, the conventional way that comes to mind is, oh, find a charger or find a USB and plug your phone to it. It has to be wired connections. But in recent times, we have cases of wireless chargers, right? That's an approach that has transcended conventional behaviors. Now all I need to do is place my phone on my wireless charger right here on my table, and my phone charges while I have this conversation without any wireless connection, without any wired connections. Another example would be, think about business cards these days. So it's good that I have SDG advocates on this call, right? We're saying, oh, reduce waste, we're saying protect the environment, we're saying don't cut down trees, and all of those kind of things. So ideally, you have people walk into conferences and rooms, and everybody has a business card. It's more than 1,000 business cards exchange hands, which is usually largely paper, right? It means that lots of people are having paper everywhere. We're not protecting the environment in the real sense. So somebody thought about that problem and came up with NFC business cards. It means that what I need is just one card. I don't know if any of you have seen that kind of card before, right? But what I need is just one card. And what do I do? If I need to exchange my contact with somebody, all that person needs to do is tap their phone on that card. It's either they're tapping the card or they're scanning the barcode on that card. And it gives them my name, my phone number, my email address, my LinkedIn profile, if I have a website, if I have a portfolio of projects, all of that information just goes into their phone, and in 1 or 2 clicks, they're there. That's the place of innovation. That's what we mean when we are saying these things transcends conventional boundaries. It transcends conventional ways of thought, right? I already gave my example for innovation before I got to innovation, but yes, just so that we understand, we have clearer understanding of what it is. A mindset that embraces change as an opportunity for growth. It encourages experimentation and thrives on the discovery of new possibilities. That's how I have coined the definition of innovation in this case. I won't give another example because I already gave an example earlier with the case of the business cards. Then sustainable project management, right? The use of specific knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to achieve immediate project objectives with the need to preserve and enhance the resources and ecosystems upon which future projects depend, fostering resilience and adaptability in the face of global challenges. So once you hear sustainable development goals, of course, that's the quick definition. Let's talk about the present situations without compromising the future. So if we're saying sustainable project management, it's the same thing. That's what I'm trying to communicate, to say, oh, we're going to manage projects. Oh, we're going to use knowledge, we're going to use skills, we're going to use tools and techniques to meet our immediate project needs. But we're going to make sure that we do it in such a way that the future is not jeopardized. That's about that. Sustainable development. So this is supposed to be like an overview of the sustainable development goals. And then I'm also going to do a quick audience check at this point before we continue the conversation. There are 17 of these goals. There are 29 people on this call. So in the chat, please drop the goals that are peculiar to you or the ones that you're an advocate for. I want to, please let me see it in the chat to say, oh, this person, which goals are you an advocate for? So is it goal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? If there are more than one, please drop them in the chat so I can see as well. Please do well to drop them in the chat. Let's see. What goals are you advocating for? I can see Mubarak says climate action. Mohammed Bashir 4 and 13. Emmanuel goal 13, climate action. Thank you. Please keep the responses coming, as this would help me with the kind of examples that I would give as we continue with the presentation. Thank you, Emmanuel Thomas, goal 13, climate action. Eze Christie, goal 3 and 4. Emmanuel, quality education. Adebayo Joseph, 4 and 17. Born Air, SDG 4. Alimasi, goal 4. Uche, goal 4 and 3. Thank you. Oluwafemi, 2, 4, 13 and 17. I like that. Quality education, life below water. Thank you, Oluwatomi. Adamu Muhammad, 3, 4 and 5. Thank you. Sunday, goal 4. Thank you. Okay. 4, 5 and 13. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. You can keep the responses coming. I didn't see any 8, but then it's fine. I have a bias for something around the SDG 8, but it's all good. Well done, everyone. Something that came up largely. Goal 13 came up largely. Goal 4 came up largely. 7 came up largely. So as we progress with the conversations, I'll try as much as possible to keep the examples to these areas of focus. So I'm not giving big examples that my audience cannot relate to, right? Quickly, let's touch the importance of sustainable project management, right? So based on the definition I gave earlier, it's important that we all acknowledge that sustainable project management is vital. It's something that we cannot do without. If our project management practices are not sustainable, then maybe we shouldn't even be having this conversation in the first place, because trends across the next 20, 30 years are saying that project management methodologies, techniques, approaches needs to be adopted in all spheres of life. So whether in your personal life, whether in your work life, whether in your relationship life, project management is a life skill. I tell people that project management is a life skill, right? And to tell you how diverse project management is, I read a book not too long ago. It's called Project Management for Parenting, something like, I can't remember the name of the author. But if you can lay your hands on that book, read it. It gives you a very diverse view. It gives you a very broad perspective as to what project management is. Because when people hear project management, or something that readily comes to mind, construction or tech, all of those kind of things. But it's basically it's an everyday life skill, right? So it's important that whatever practices we're adopting remain sustainable. And why? Why is this important? The first point there is long-term impact. Again, we're advocates of the SDG. And remember that the SDG is not looking at just the now. We're looking at now and the future. So the long-term impact is one reason why sustainable project management is important to us, because it means that we need to have lasting positive impacts. Communities need to feel the impact. People need to feel the impact of the work that we're doing, of the projects that we're implementing. Resource efficiency, also very, very important, because there has to be optimal balance of resources. Resources are never enough. You would never work on projects that, oh, my resources are enough. There will always be one resource that you have to properly manage if you're going to have sustainable project management practices on your project. So that resource efficiency is one reason why we need to take project management seriously and do it sustainably, because there will always be needs around resources. Social responsibility, right? It's important because this addresses social issues. We're all social beings. The social aspects of our lives are they're part of our life that's very dear to all of us. So it's important that in implementing all of these responsibilities, that we have some sense of responsibility for the society, right? So we're addressing social issues, poverty, inequality, access to education, healthcare. All of these things are central to the SDGs, right? So it's important that we adopt social responsibility. And then global collaboration. The world gets smaller by the day. Before now we say, oh, the world is such a small village. The world is now it's even smaller than whatever it was, because I can sit on this call and talk to all of you from wherever you are. A couple of years ago, I probably need to jump on a plane. You need to jump on a plane, get on a bus, all of those kind of things for us to interact. But in recent times, I can sit here, you can sit there, and we have conversations. It means that the world is now so small that we can have it in our palms, right? So it's important that we embrace collaborations across borders, across sectors. I know that this is a diverse audience. I think I saw a message in the chat. Somebody says they're calling in from DRC. I've seen a couple of people say, oh, they're joining from different parts of the world, right? It means that an approach that we need to pay attention to closely is collaboration across borders, collaboration across sectors as well. It's extremely important if we're going to look at sustainable project management. So let's look at leadership in project management, right? Please pay attention. Let's follow, because we'll get to that point where we'll take this conversation back to the audience, and then you're going to give me your own insights as well. So leadership in project management, right? I mentioned earlier that leadership is has to do with empowering people, influencing people, continuous project improvement, and things like that, right? So leadership in project management is pivotal in shaping organizational culture and ensuring that projects align with long-term sustainability goals, right? It means that as leads, I understand that you are project leads, I understand that you're going to be working with people. So it's important that you develop a clear vision. Visionary leadership is extremely important for your teams. It's extremely important for your project. As leaders, you need to be able to articulate a clear vision that incorporates sustainability into your team's overall strategy, right? You need to be able to clearly lead your team. You need to be able to exude knowledge, confidence in the work that you're doing and in the teams that you're leading. That your team needs to be able to develop a vote of extreme confidence in you. And that can only come when you have a clear vision for your projects or for the activities that you're leading the team to achieve, right? Leadership is also very important because it creates a culture of, it creates a culture of sustainability, right? It means that sustainable practices are embedded in all aspects of the work that you're doing, from everyday operations to innovative thinking to contributing positively to society. It feels like it's a part of your doing for every action that is taken, either by you or members of your team. There's an element of sustainability embedded in it, right? So the right leadership creates a culture of sustainability, and then empowering teams, right? Finally, empowering teams. Leaders empower project teams to make connections, right? I said it earlier that you're going to be doing a lot of empowering your team. You're going to be doing a lot of influencing your team. So it's important that you are leading people, right, to make the right decisions. You're not going to make all of the decisions yourself. If you're making a lot of decisions yourself, there's already a problem with your leadership approach. So it's important that you empower your team such that you can be assured that they have the right knowledge, the right skill to make decisions that align with your sustainability objectives, right? And to achieve that, there are 10 non-negotiable skills for project leaders, right? All of you on this call, you're going to be leading teams, you're going to be talking to people, you're going to be leading yourself. So aside the concept of leading team, there's also the concept of self-leadership. So in your everyday life, there are skills that you need that are non-negotiable. If you're going to succeed at whatever, it's extremely important that you have these skills. And first on the list is adaptability, right? The ability to pivot quickly to changing circumstances. I have been a project manager for over 10 years, and I can tell you confidently, right, that no matter how much you plan your projects, no matter how much detailing you put to your project, if you plan it to the last cent, like all the way to the last cent, I can confidently tell you that your project will still not go as planned. Change is the most inevitable thing in project management. So as project leaders, adaptability is the most it's an extremely non-negotiable skill. You need to be able to, you need to be resilient. You need to be able to make decisions at the snap of a finger without jeopardizing the output or the quality of the work that you're going to do, right? There's going to be quick shifts, market shifts, global events, ensuring everything to ensure that your project remains on track, right? Emotional intelligence is the second skill. Again, I'm going to go back to the earlier part of this where I said, remember to live in more of influence than authority. It's easier for you to live in influence than for you to live the authority. Yes, there's the place of the authority that you need for you to be able to make certain impact. But when you're able to influence your team, the work goes faster, the work goes smoother, everybody is happy to pull their A game into the work that you're doing. You need to be able to understand how to manage your own emotions and how to manage the emotions of other people to foster effective communication, right? It's extremely important that you get it right with emotional intelligence, right? Strategic thinking is the next skill. It means that you need to be able to think critically, right? You need to be able to think without a box, not even outside a box. Now, you need to be able to think without a box to say, oh, there's no box. So what exactly do we need? How exactly do I need to lead my team? You need to be able to think critically. Innovation is extremely important, right? You need to encourage a culture of innovation within your teams. It means that you need to get people to, you need to be able to open your mind. You need to be as open-minded as you can be to say, oh, you can't be rigid. If you're going to be a successful project leader, you cannot be rigid, right? So it's extremely important that you're open to innovation, you're open to collaboration, work across diverse teams, departments, external stakeholders, internal stakeholders, resources and expertise from across the world, right? The SDGs have a lot of moving parts. There are lots of moving parts that make up the SDGs. So for the people that are focused on climate action, right, looking at collaboration as an example, it's extremely important that you're able to collaborate with people in the academia, for example, because you need to do a lot of research and all of those things. It's extremely important that you're able to collaborate with people in the geospatial space, because over time, recent innovation shows that you need data to be able to track pandemics and epidemics, behavioral actions and things like that. So geospatial application is something that is working so much in recent times. People will say, oh, in the last 2 years, this is what the trend is. In the next 2 years, this is what the trends will be. And we can see these things visually because our geospatial experts are able to give us this information using data sets and maps and things like that, right? So it's extremely important that you handle collaboration properly. Next is resilience, right? I already mentioned resilience when I was talking about adaptability earlier. But again, to show you how extremely crucial this is, we're going to talk about resilience again. You need to be able to cope with setbacks. Maintaining a positive attitude and inspiring confidence in the face of diversity. So a good example, right? Let me give my own example. I'd worked on a project for about 18 months. Yes, that's when I was working in engineering. So we had started this project from the onset. We had worked right from when the civil engineers started the building. We had built, everything had gone extremely well. We had installed, installations had happened. And then the closing weekend to say, oh, we're closing this project by this weekend. The client is coming to sign off on Monday morning. And then on Saturday, I remember very vividly, right, that on Saturday afternoon, I was in a meeting somewhere in Ikeja, and I got a call to say, oh, the installations for this project caught a fire. And I'm like, how? Why? It's even more intriguing because part of the installations that my team worked on included fire detectors, smoke detectors. It means that the building was supposed to be fireproof. It means that the building was supposed to be smoke proof, right? Something as little as food getting too heated in your microwave should trigger an alarm. That's how much of detailed work we have done. But here we are 2 days to the client signing off, and then there's a fire outbreak on site. What could be worse, right? But as a project manager, as a project lead, I went to site that day. I'm not going to go to site and begin to fidget because obviously your client is already fidgeting. The team is already fidgeting. So you don't, as project leaders, as project managers, you don't go into situations fidgeting. Like you need to be able to inspire confidence in the face of adversity. So what did I do? I picked up my phone, I called the teams, I called the engineers to say, okay, this has happened. What could have gone wrong? Right? Understand the situation, do some quick analysis, and then I went off the site, called the project. So there's another level of project manager on site. We had these conversations, and I sent an email to the client, right, to say, oh, this has happened, blah, 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 blah. The end of my email stated very clearly to the client that there was nothing to worry about. And it was something that was unanticipated, and we're going to deal with it. So as much as possible, it's important that you maintain a positive attitude. No matter what, if heaven is falling on your projects as project leads, you need to be able to maintain a positive attitude. You need to be able to inspire confidence in the people that you're working with and for the clients that you're delivering to, right? Change management. Again, you can see that all of these skills are intertwined, right? Change is inevitable. If the best project manager in the world joins your team to plan a project, there will still be something that will change. You can quote me anywhere. So it's extremely important that your change management game is tight. Your change management game has to be given. For the Gen Zs on the call, your change management game has to give, right? It has to give what it should give. You can't afford to cook, right? So it means that things will change, things will happen. You need to understand that. You need to be receptive to change, and then making informed decisions. So you can't just wake up and make decisions. There has to be data backing your decision making, right? You have to consider a lot of perspective and potential impacts when you're making decisions. If you're going to take a risk, it has to be very, very calculated risk. And talking about decision making, as project leaders, one approach that I have adopted that has worked for me so much in recent times is not being in the place of being the decision maker. And I will explain what that means. Is rather than say, oh, this is the decision we're making about this, it's usually more effective when you facilitate decision making, right? It means that you help your team to make a decision. So rather than say, oh, hi guys, this is the decision, they're coming to say, oh, hi guys, this has happened. What can we do? If we do this, what will happen? If we do this, what will happen? If we do this, what will happen? If we don't do this, what will happen, right? So there's an analysis that gives the team the impression that we all made this decision, so that when things begin to fall apart, or when things begin to go in line, when things begin to fall apart, everybody is responsible for holding the team together. When things continues to go as planned, everybody is extremely proud of the work that has been done, right? So yes, you need to make hard decisions as a project leader, as a project manager, but you also need to understand the fact that you need to give room for facilitating decision making rather than outright decision making. Get your team to make decisions, get your project sponsors to make decisions. Your core focus should be helping them make the best decisions, right? That means that you give them all of the possible options. You give them all of the possible options so they make the best decisions. Communication that's the most important part. Because no matter how good the work that you're doing is as a project team, if as a project lead, if your team doesn't understand the work that you're doing, if your stakeholders don't understand the work that you're doing, if your sponsors don't understand the work that you're doing, if you're not communicating with them, if they don't know what you're doing, if you're not carrying them along, you'd have a problem. It means that you need to be able to communicate clearly. You need to stay in touch. The things that you are saying, you need to be sure that that is what your team members are hearing. It's one thing for me to say, hey, it's another thing for my team members to hear, hey, and not, hey. Are we together? Then finally, ethical leadership, right? This skill, upholding ethical standards and integrity in all actions, right? I found a very simple definition for integrity. And I learned that from a 7-year-old not too long ago. And a definition of integrity says, what is integrity? Integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is watching. And I'm like, wow, that's a very interesting definition. So as project leaders, right, you need to be able to uphold ethical standards. There's no room for compromising on standards. There's no room for compromising on the quality of work that you're going to deliver. There's no room for compromising on morals. There's no room for compromising on you understand what I mean, right? There are set objectives, there are set goals, there's a quality assurance that has been set, there's there's a process that has been designed. So there's no room for dropping the ball when it comes to ethical standards and integrity across all actions. Again, if you didn't get it earlier, I'll give that definition again. Integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is watching, right? Now let's talk about innovation in project management. So by leveraging innovations, organizations do not only improve project outcomes, but they also contribute to sustainable development by addressing environmental, social, and economic challenges in their project management practices. Remember the definition I gave for innovation earlier. So who is able to give me the keywords from that definition? Please drop it in the chat. The keywords from the definition of innovation that I explained earlier. We have 15 seconds. Going. Let me be sure that I'm speaking to all the 29 people on this call and not just myself and the host. I gave a couple of keywords when I was defining innovation earlier. Somebody help me. If I don't get a response, I'm going to assume that we're not interested in this conversation and we can end it. Okay, you don't remember my exact words. It's okay to use your own words. I've opened the chat. I can't see any responses. A new idea. Thank you, Bon. Allah Ajay. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrongly. But yes, thank you. A new idea. Thank you. What else? Somebody else help me. A new thing that hasn't been done. Okay. Thank you, Eloho. Is anyone else helping us? 5, 4, 3, 2. Invention. Thank you, Uche Matthew Aji. Adiola says novelty. Thank you. So yes, you're all correct. Innovation has improvement on all things. Thank you very much, Oluwafemi. Continuous improvement. That's what I was waiting to hear. Continuous improvement. Thank you so much, Oluwafemi. Introduction of something new. Thank you, Gasting, right? So innovation, right? And there are approaches to innovation, right? And then the focus, especially the focus for innovation as it relates to our conversation, would be in relation to problem solving, in relation to efficiency improvements, and stakeholder engagements. Right? It means that in problem solving, you need to be able to. We're looking at the tenets that deal with creative solutions to complex sustainability challenges. We can't continue to do same things, same way, and expect a different result. It doesn't work that way. So for innovation, we're going to look at very innovative problem-solving skills, right? We're going to look at efficiency improvements. Say, oh, how best do we optimize the use of our resources? How best do we ensure resource optimization? How best do we foster resilience and adaptability? You know, things like this, right? Efficiency improvements, our processes, can they become shorter? Are we able to save time? Are we able to save human resources? Are we able, you know, innovation across these spaces and stakeholder engagement, right? So before now, we'll say, oh, if we're going to engage our stakeholders, we're going to have a workshop. It means that everybody must come into a room and then we'll talk about it. In recent times, that's not how it works anymore. In recent times, we're having virtual rooms. In recent times, we're having people joining from across the globe. In recent times, there's a diverse perspective as to how to address the needs of our affected communities. Right? There's the place of in-person conversations, there's the place of virtual conversations, there's the place of sending a representative at some point, right? It means that you'd have middlemen do some of the work in relation to talking to your stakeholders. It means that sometimes a very good example would be inclusive stakeholder engagement. And I'll give an example, right? I have an MBA from Quantic School of Business, Washington, DC. And a couple of months ago, we had a meetup here in Nigeria that I hosted. And when people were registering to attend that meetup, someone reached out to me to say, oh, Hi, Rihanna. Thank you for putting this meetup together. It's the first time we're having one in Abuja. I look forward to seeing you. However, I am hearing impaired. It means that I need an interpreter to get the best out of this engagement. Right. So that meant that, oh, and I had to, that was something that I never thought of. For some reasons, I didn't think that that was going to be, when I was identifying all of my risks for that project, I didn't identify that as a risk. When it came up, right, it meant that I had to find an interpreter for him. For every word that was said at the meetup, somebody had to interpret. We had like a sign language interpreter to interpret what we were talking about. For his own contributions, the sign language interpreter also explained to us the things that he needed to communicate to the team as well, right? So that's basically it. It means that there are cases where things like this will come up. There are cases where it's language barriers. You're working in a French-speaking country, and then you need to communicate certain things when you go into communities. You need an interpreter to do that. There are certain situations where, oh, if you are collecting data, right, rather than have people, we used to have a problem where people just sit down in one corner and fill all of our survey tools. These days, we are incorporating geospatial tools into the phones that people are using to collect data to confirm that they were actually at the right locations when these things were done. Right? Innovation on innovation in project management, risk management, right? Identification and mitigation of risk. We need to look at innovative approaches to identifying risks, so that our projects are better equipped to handle uncertainties and changes in the operating environment. We're talking about risk. There are known knowns. It means that, oh, you know that this risk is going to happen. There are known unknowns. There are unknown knowns, right? These are terminologies in project management that I would not like to go too deep into. But if you, after this conversation, or even in the middle of this conversation, you can just Google search known knowns, known unknowns, unknown knowns, unknown unknowns, those kind of things, right? There are risks that are high probability, low impact, low probability, high impact, high probability, high impact, low probability, low impact risks. A good example will be the blast that happened in Ibadan yesterday. If any project manager was working around that site, at the point of developing their risk register or their risk management plans, I'm not sure that, so a situation where you have, oh, a blast is going to happen will fall under the category of low probability, high impact. It means that there's a very low chance that something like that can happen, especially in this part of the world where we usually don't have that happen every other day. So that's an example of a low probability and high impact risk. The probability that it will happen is extremely low, but the impact, if it eventually happens, is extremely high and it's going to change the course of a lot of actions. Right? And so on and so forth. There are a lot of examples when it comes to managing risk in projects. Then continuous improvement, which is directly tied to innovation and definition that I gave earlier, to say, oh, embracing innovation to encourage a culture of continuous improvement. So it means that whatever we've learned from previous lessons, from previous projects, it's important that we take into future initiatives so that we don't make the same mistakes, right? It means that we need to document our lessons learned. In project management, one of your closing documents, extremely important closing documents, is that lessons learned document. Please mute your mic, Omolola. It's extremely important. It's extremely important that you have a lessons learned document, right? So that when the next project comes, whether or not you are there, the next project manager can pick up that document to say, oh, these are the things that didn't go right on the previous project, and these are pitfalls that I need to avoid if I'm going to make the best of my project. Innovative approaches, right, to project management for SDG success. Design thinking workshops. We need to become very innovative with how we're designing our workshops, right? We need to find ways to generate innovative project ideas. We need to extremely focus on developing cross-functional teams, right? It means that your teams have to be multidisciplinary. Gone are the days where, oh, doctors are having a project and it's only doctors that are on the team, or it's only people that are in the health space that are on the team. These days, if doctors are going to have a project, they need tech people on those projects. They need communications people on those projects. They need branding and marketing people on those projects. So your teams need to be extremely multidisciplinary if you are going to encourage innovation through collaboration. You need to consider adopting agile methodologies for your project, right? These are innovative approaches that we need to consider and pay attention to. It means that we need to be flexible, we need to look at responsiveness, we need to look at implementing our projects in iterations so that we can check for improvements. Oh, this is one phase that is done. Can we continue with the initial plan? Is there something that we've learned from this phase that we need to look at how to incorporate in the next phase? Is there something that we've done in this phase that we need to completely drop and not take it into the next phase? Technology integration is also extremely important, using cutting-edge technologies such as AI, IoT, blockchain to streamline project processes. AI has come to stay. Whether you like it or not, it has come to stay. So the earlier you begin to familiarize yourself with AI tools, the better. Even the Project Management Institute has released a course on generative AI a couple of months ago. And for those of us that are members of that institute, some of us have taken the course to say, oh, we're beginning to do a reality check on each other to say, oh, this thing has come to stay. So the earlier we settle into it, the better for us. There are 1,000,001 AI tools, right? There's ChatGPT, which is the most common. If ChatGPT doesn't sit well with you, Google it. There's 1,000,001 in recent times. So please do your research, experiment with these things, find out the ones that work for you. You cannot sit and fold your hands with technological trends moving and you're not moving with it, right? And then finally, we need to look at impact measurement tools, right? Tools to measure the social, environmental, and economic impacts of our projects. We need to pay serious attention to partnership development. We need to incentivize innovation, right? So when people hear incentives on projects, the first thing that comes to mind is, oh, why should we be doing projects for people and still give them money? Many a times, incentives, a lot of the most impactful incentives on projects that I've worked on are not even monetary. It's something as simple as a certificate of participation in some cases to say, oh, this person contributed to this, that acknowledgement of people's efforts. If there are organizations, send them a certificate that they can put in their reception, send them an award plaque. Something that simple, not necessarily a large chunk of money that we now have to go and start looking for funders for. For some people, it's as simple as a pamphlet. It's as simple as a pamphlet, something as simple as a notepad to say, oh, thank you for working on this project with us. We appreciate your support. Send them. For some organizations, it's something as simple as as a letter. So if you work with a ministry or you work with a director somewhere, just send him a letter to say, dear sir, we extremely appreciate, things like that, incentives to get them. If you're doing posts on social media, acknowledge them, put their links to it, mention their website, something to encourage people to give you the best of themselves on your projects. And then continuous learning culture, right? So project management tools that we're going to use to drive innovation, right? I'm not going to go too deep into this because this is very basic project management knowledge. And since a lot of people on this call are team leads, I expect that you have basic project management knowledge. If you do not, it's totally fine. All you have to do is just ask for this presentation and then do some research on all of these things that I'm going to mention here. Right, we're going to look at scope management plans, resource allocation, integration management plans, risk management plans, all of these tools. Right, we're running out of time, so I need to fast track this. There are a lot of tools that you can use for project management on your projects. As leaders, these are innovative approaches, right? You can use schedule management, Gantt charts, Kanban boards, workflow, work breakdown structures, all of these things, right? There are project calendars in recent times, Google calendars, Microsoft calendars, 1,000,001 calendars. There's Slack, there's Asana, there's Monday.com, there's Notion, there's Microsoft projects, there are a lot of tools, right, that you can adopt. There are softwares, all of the ones I've mentioned are softwares, right? But these softwares have these tools embedded in them in one way or the other. Right, same thing. This just analyzing more tools, right? So you can see a lot of stakeholder engagement and analysis here. right? So for stakeholder analysis, you're looking at stakeholders that are high power, high interest, high power, low interest, low power, high interest, low power, low interest stakeholders, right? It's extremely important that when you're working on projects, you do a stakeholder analysis, you do a stakeholder mapping to say, oh, which of my stakeholders have high power, high interest? Those are your most powerful stakeholders, right? And then if you do further research, there are ways to manage stakeholders that fall within all categories across board, whether they are low power or high interest, or whether they're high power, low interest, or whether they're even low power and very high interest. Many a times, the stakeholders that have low power and high interest can be can be a can be extremely, like, the interest is extremely high, so you need to keep them, you need to manage them properly, right? So a tool as simple as a as a stakeholder analysis could have just saved you all of the headache that you will get on your projects. Now for quality management plans, same thing. Before your projects commence, you have identified specifications for projects, products and services that you want to render, for your deliverables, for your reports, all of those kind of things. You have identified them clearly. Up next, we are looking at adopting MEAL frameworks in ensuring positive impact for XDG projects. But I'll take a quick break. Let's take a quick break before we get to this. Let's do a 2 minutes audience check. Let's do a 2 minutes audience check. Where is everybody on the call? Let's look at everybody on the call. Okay, so the question is, I'll largely work with voluntary responses, right? So I highlighted 10 skills that are non-negotiables for project leaders going forward, right? And I know that as young people, there are some of those skills that even I myself, I'm still working on developing, right? But let's put this in the chat. Which ones are our strongest holds? Which ones are we developing at the moment? I want to know. So for people in this room, I mentioned a lot of skills earlier that are non-negotiables, right, for project leaders. So tell me, which ones are you still working on at the moment? Which one do you think that it's not your strongest hold right now, and you're still trying to work on it? Eloha says resilience. Thank you. Let's keep it coming. Let's keep it coming. Decision making. Thank you. Oluwafemi says emotional intelligence. Oluwafemi says emotional intelligence. Jennifer, change management. You're still struggling with that. I sincerely advise that you find a way to deal with it. It's extremely important because change is inevitable on your project. Victor says effective communication. Please develop your communication skills. It's extremely important. If you're going to, important that you learn effective communication. Thank you. Emotional intelligence and decision making. So if there's something that I need to point out, right, is that our personalities are also key players when it comes to defining or developing our leadership skills. Right, there are factors to be considered, but it's important that I mention that there are no factors to keep us in that place. You can say, oh, because my most dominant personality type is choleric, it means that I'm not going to pay attention to emotional intelligence. Now, as project managers, remember that I said resilience, remember that I said adaptability. So one thing that I largely advise is that project leads take personality tests. There are lots of free personality tests online. You don't have to go in for therapy and all whatnot. Take a personality test. Self-awareness. When I was talking about emotional intelligence earlier, I mentioned that you need to understand your own emotions so you're better able to deal with other people's emotions. So a personality test is something that will work. Having a personality test helps you, gives you some insight as to how to develop any of these skills that you are still struggling with. Adamu Mohammed, emotional intelligence and personal development. We'll take 2 more responses and then we'll continue. Okay, there are no more responses. So let's continue. Adopting male frameworks and ensuring positive impact for SDG projects. So what do I mean by when you see before now, it used to largely be M&E. I'm sure some of you or most of you would have heard M&E. It used to largely be M&E, monitoring and evaluation. So we're trying to measure impacts of the projects that we've done. It's largely monitoring and evaluation. But in recent times, has become monitoring, evaluation, and learning. It means that after we monitor our projects, after we evaluate the impacts of our projects, we document the learnings. Right? We document the learnings, and it helps us to drive sustainability for subsequent projects that we're working on. Right. So by incorporating these practices into our MEL project processes, organizations can enhance their ability to demonstrate the impact of projects and SDGs and contribute effectively to sustainable development. Right. There are a couple of practices that we need to incorporate so that we're ensuring positive impact for our projects. First on the list is developing clear indicators. Right. I want to measure the impact of a project that I have worked on, right? It's extremely important. I won't wait until after the project is completed to develop my indicator. It's extremely important that the indicators are clearly defined. We have developed it to say, how are we measuring there's a lot of new year, new me, new year resolutions, setting goals, all of those kind of things, right? That has happened over the past few weeks, right? And I'm sure for those of you that have been intentional about setting goals or new year, new me, or building resolutions, something that your life coaches or your mentors will tell you is that you should develop SMART goals. And by SMART, it means that goals that are measurable, goals that are achievable, goals that have timelines, all of these kind of things, right? So it's the same thing when developing our monitoring and evaluation frameworks. We need to develop clear indicators. At the end of this project, how do we ensure, how do we manage, how do we track progress, right? Next on this is landscape assessments, right? It shows that by that I mean, what is happening and what can happen. It will likely involve collecting baseline data, right, before projects are implemented so that we are able to establish a reference point for measuring progress. If I say, we want to implement a project that deals with training teachers to use some AI tool, right, for students in, say, SS2, right? Before we implement that project, it's extremely important that we conduct landscape assessments so that we have a reference point for measuring progress. By landscape assessments, it means that we have like a baseline. We have like a baseline to work with, right? To say, this is what was there before the project came. The teachers were using smartphones, or the teachers didn't even have smartphones, or some of the students don't even have a laptop, or some of them don't even know what a laptop looks like, right? Baseline assessment. We need we need to conduct landscape assessments so that by the time we implement the projects, there's a yardstick to say, oh, what was it before we came on board and what is it now? That approach is extremely important if we're going to do our monitoring, evaluation, and learning frameworks. Regular reporting is also something that we cannot debate. And then participatory evaluation, extremely important. It means that you need to involve stakeholders. Your stakeholders are the lifeline of your projects. No matter how good, how innovative, how extremely fantastic your idea is, if your stakeholders are not in sync, you're going to have problems. So participatory evaluation is extremely important. It means that stakeholders need to be involved in the evaluation process. You need to consider their perspectives. You need to see them as a very vital resource for validation of your findings. Right. And then we're also going to talk about the use of technology. Right, we already mentioned that earlier to say, oh, there's a lot of technological innovations in recent times, and we need to use them. So what will be the outcomes, right, of optimized project management for the SDGs? We've talked about leadership, we've talked about innovation, we've talked about sustainable project management, we've talked about monitoring, evaluation, and learning frameworks. All of this, right? So by the time we adopt all of this, what will be the outcomes? That's the final bit that we're going to discuss now before we go into our Q&A. I know that we have very few minutes left, so I'll try as much as possible to keep it short and simple. What will be our outcomes? There are a couple of outcomes that I have outlined. First of is efficient resource allocation. Remember that I mentioned earlier that human, no matter how much of resources are allocated to you, there will always be something that is scarce. Right. So if we adopt all of these principles properly, if we have effective leadership, if we are maximizing innovation, if we are focused on sustainable project management for SDGs, the first outcome is efficient resource allocation. Right. It means that from your funding to your materials to human resource, you are going to use them effectively and keeping waste to the lowest possible level. You're going to have a timely project delivery. Timing is extremely important on projects. Time and budget, extremely important on your projects. It means that your end value has to always be greater than your scheduled variance. I don't think this is the right platform to explain that, but you can do some research to understand what I have just said. It means that if you say that at this point in time, we should be at 60% completion on our project, then when we do an analysis, you should be at 60% or more. If you're supposed to be at 60% of projects today and you're at 59.9%, there's a problem. But if you are supposed to be at 60 and you're at 75, I don't think that's a problem for any projects at all. As long as the quality remains the same, as long as the quality assurance is there and expectations are met, deliverables have no issues of quality control, right? The next outcome is effective stakeholder engagement. It means that your stakeholders are solidly behind you. It means that your stakeholders will stick out their necks for you. It means that your stakeholders will give you any and everything that you need to ensure that your work happens seamlessly in their communities, in their organizations, wherever. Sustainability integration, that's another outcome, right? It means that you learn on the project, your team members learn on the project, the communities that you're working in, they're also learning to become, they're able to incorporate sustainability into their NDA. Even after the execution of your project, you would have left an impact to get people to understand that sustainability is extremely important in all areas of their life. Up next is it gives you clear project objectives and impact, right? It helps you to define your project objectives, how they directly contribute to a specific SDGs, making it easier to carry out your monitoring, evaluation and learning frameworks, right? Another outcome is risk mitigation and adaptability. It means that you have identified all your risk, you have mitigation in place, you have adaptability in place for things that happen. Quality assurance is top notch on your projects. We have data-driven decision making. It means that you're not making decisions on a whim. You have reliable sources that you're getting data from to make your decisions. Social inclusion and community empowerment. This is extremely important because as SDG advocates, we understand the importance of participatory inclusion and participation and inclusivity in all of the projects that we're doing, right? Social inclusion, we're ensuring that we're incorporating marginalized and vulnerable communities, things around gender balance, things around socioeconomic, social inclusion and things like that are extremely important. So these are outcomes that we'll possibly have. Ethical and responsible practices. I talked about ethical leadership earlier, where I gave definition of integrity. Can someone drop in the chat the definition that I gave for what integrity is? Let's do that quickly. Let me be sure that everybody's following. What is the definition of integrity that I gave? Who will volunteer, or do I call out people? Doing the right thing. That's half of my definition. Thank you, Adebayo. Well, that definition is not complete. Who is going to help us? Integrity is doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. Thank you. Thank you so much, Eloho. Thank you, Oluwatoyin. Faisal, thank you. You also got my definition right. Oluwafemi, thank you. Who else? I hope I didn't skip anybody, but yes, thank you so much. I'm happy that we're all following the conversation, right? Integrity is doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. So yes, talking about back to ethical and responsible practices, right? It means that we need to encourage ethical behavior. We need to consider fair labor practices, responsible sourcing, anti-corruption measures, aligning with ethical principles, basically, and underpinnings around the SDGs. Corruption is becoming a big deal on global projects and international projects. And unfortunately, there's been a lot of not too good responses from our continent in Africa. So we need to put in a lot more conscious effort into changing the narrative, right? Into building trustworthy tenets in implementation of our projects, right? And yes, so let me quickly mention that as project leads, again, you'll be working with multidisciplinary teams, you'll be working with global teams. So whatever, you need to also learn what is corruption across the geographical regions of your project. There are places, I know that to the best of my knowledge, there are certain cultural inclinations that work for us here in Nigeria. I'm in Nigeria, that work for us here in Africa, that are unacceptable and can be termed corruption in other countries, in Europe and America. So as project leads, it's extremely important. There's a limit to how much you can give to somebody if you're working with them on certain projects in some other countries. Any gift that goes beyond certain value is termed corruption. I know that some organizations in Africa have also adopted that principle, but I'm saying this so that going forward, you're able to learn. You can do some research to say, oh, so that you don't say, because ignorance is not an excuse of the law. Nobody say, oh, I didn't know, I just saw the shoe and I bought it for her. That's not exactly how it works. Because I enjoyed working with her, sometimes this little thing can be termed as corruption and indict you and your project. Well, that's an aside. Another outcome, transparent and accountable processes, right? Ensuring that your projects are carried out ethically, responsibly, and compliant with the SDG values. Then finally, maximize the impact, right? It means that the greatest possible contribution to the SDG, you would have extremely effective contributions, your impacts will be felt, your project objective, processes, and outcomes are aligned, irrespective of whatever SDG you are advocating for, right? The impact of your project is extremely positive. That's the final outcome. So yes, those are all of the outcomes of optimized project management for SDGs. What are the next steps before we go into questions and answers? So quick advice from me is invest in online courses. There are a lot of free resources from the United Nations. You're all SDG advocates. So I expect that you all have taken one or two courses that are either sponsored by the United Nations or any of their partner organizations, right? So please take courses, invest in online courses, find free resources to learn about project management, to learn about leadership, to learn about project leadership, to learn about sustainable practices in project management, to learn about project management trends. It helps build you and it helps build your team, right? Another free resource is the PMI kickoff course. The PMI is the Project Management Institute. So if you Google Project Management Institute kickoff course, that's a good place to start if project management is something that you want to pay a lot more attention to, right? The kickoff course is something that you can take in one day. I think it's about 2 hours or thereabouts, right? And it's not something that you would rush. You take your time, you take notes. It's a very self-paced, guided course, right? That gives you a very interesting perspective to project management, right? And then finally, be deliberate about your project management journey. Remember that I said project management has become a life skill. So in every area of your life, you need to learn about project management. So please be deliberate about the project management journey, and then stay connected. Stay connected to your team. Stay connected to me. I'm happy to stay in touch with all of you. Please reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's Amusu Rihanna, the same name that you have here. Send me a message, say something about this session, invite people to. I'm sure that there's a link to this session somewhere. So when that comes up, share it with your people. Send me a message on LinkedIn. If there are questions that you think, oh, this question is quite personal, I'd like to ask her directly. Send me a message on LinkedIn. I will try as much as possible to respond before the end of the week. Right. So yes, LinkedIn is the easiest place to reach out to me. If there's a need to take it out of LinkedIn, I'll let you know from that conversation. Just say, hello, Rihanna, this is this person from this session. So if you mention SDSN, if you mention this organization, of course, I'm happy to respond to you. Yes, these are our next steps. Let's take questions before we wrap up the session. Questions as it relates to you can share the slide. So yes, Emmanuel has the slide. If the host for this session has the slide, I'm sure they know how best to reach out to you to say, oh, thank you for joining the session. This is the slide. So yes, Emmanuel will share with you. But if you don't get it from the team, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll possibly share with you myself, or maybe just make a post on this and share it. As I want to hear from you, but do you want me to flip the scripts and ask questions?
All right, thank you so much, Rihanna. Awesome session we've had, and like I said earlier, we're gonna unpack a lot of things on this session. I must confess, we have thoroughly enjoyed the session, and wow, amazing. So much value for our time, and great session everyone has had. So please, you can appreciate Rihanna in the comment section, show our love. Yes, and do well to connect with her on LinkedIn, of course. So that connection is going to bet a lot of great things, and so much insight is going to come out of it. Yes, so we sincerely appreciate you. Thank you for coming on this session and being of great impact to us. Thank you so much.
Thank
you,
Alel.
if you have you can raise your hand.
Odilano Oluwatoyin. Thank you, Mohammed. Oh, yes. Thank you to Mustafa for taking time to join the session. Hi, Uche. Thank you. Anita, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Well, yes, please let's have your questions so we can wrap up the session quickly. We'll do a 60-second countdown.
Questions.
And
Just
we don't
raise
have
your
any
hand
questions.
and we'll mute from here.
Mute, yes.
Questions. Are you saying there's no question? Like everything well understood? No questions at all? Or
So if there are no
questions will be there?
questions, if there are no questions, it's one of two things. It's either I've done an extremely shabby job that nobody has understood what I said so far, or I've done an extremely great job and everybody understands every word that I have said tonight. So which of both situations is it? Please let me know in the comments. It's either I've done an extremely shabby job that you don't understand any bit of what I have said and it's too complicated, or I've done an extremely great job and everybody understands. Okay. Thank you, Faisal. It says extremely good job done. Eloho says I've done an extremely great job too. Thank you so much. Okay, so we don't have any questions. All I said was perfectly understood.
I think my wife is trying to say something.
Oh, please go ahead and say something. Adamu Muhammad, thank you. Presentation was clear and self.
Maiwa.
Talk to me, Maiwa. I'm very happy to hear from you.
Was that a question you were trying to ask? All right. So
is Maiwa asking a question? I'm very happy to hear from. What are the steps to becoming a licensed project manager? Maiwa. Emmanuel and Adebayo, do we have more time? Can I take this question on this call, or should I ask that Maiwa send me a message?
Please, you can just take the question on this call so that every other person can benefit from it.
So that every other person can benefit. Thank you. Okay, so what are the steps to becoming a licensed project manager? It's quite simple and straightforward, right? It's extremely simple and straightforward to the best of my knowledge. And first point of call is that you have a degree, right? You have a degree, which is basically a 4 years or 5 years course that gives you what? A Bachelor of Science. You have a degree, you have experience, right? If you have under 3 years of experience, right, you can take the CAPM certification, right? That's for new project managers. And then if you have beyond 3 years of experience, if you've worked on a diverse projects that don't have any overlapping timelines for 3 years, then of course you are on your way to qualifying to becoming a licensed project manager. So all you need to do is register on pmi.com. There are a couple of organizations, right? But PMI is the global organization, right, for project managers across the globe. So I usually advise that if you want to become a licensed project manager, you'd tilt towards the PMI bit of how to get things done. So I was saying earlier that you have a degree, you have experience. If it's under 3 years, please focus on the CAPM certification. If it's beyond 3 years, of course, you can take the PMP or any of the other certification courses that are available. Please go to www.pmi.org. You see all of it. It's just a simple application. Apply to become a certified project manager. Take your 35 contact hours of lessons, write the exams to get certified, pay for these exams because they're not free, right? It's an investment in yourself. So pay for these exams, write your exams, prepare very well for your exams, pass your exams, and you are on your way to becoming a globally recognized project manager. It's that simple. You have a degree, you have experience, you go to pmi.org, you become a member, or choose not to become a member, but I largely advise people to become members because it's cheaper to get these certifications if you're a member. And then it gives you a community of project management to belong to. So you're able to share resources and exchange knowledge. It's that simple. Apply, pay for the exams, write your exams, pass, and flaunt your certificate wherever you choose to. Hi, Mohammed, I have your hand raised. Mayowa, does that answer your question, or are there any other specifics? Okay, thank you. I can see that Mayowa has responded. Mohammed, let's hear from you. Oh, somebody says they can't see me on LinkedIn. You have the wrong spelling. That's why you cannot see me on LinkedIn. I am dropping the correct spelling in the chat. Rihanna Tamusu. That's what it is on LinkedIn. It's Reha. Somebody had their hand raised. I saw that earlier.
I saw it too. Mohammed, if you are still on the call, you can please go ahead with your question.
Yes, thank you for dropping the link. So that's the link to my profile on LinkedIn. Please do well to connect on LinkedIn. Are there any other questions, or can I believe that all of these comments in the chat means that we are good?
All right.
Okay,
So
Emmanuel and Adebayo, I think we are done with there are no
yes,
questions.
we are done here. No more questions. Thank you once again for doing such a fantastic job. Thank you, Rihanna. All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes. So I also want to appreciate everyone for joining the call tonight. And awesome, because you tomorrow same platform, and the focus is going to be communications and public speaking. So till then, stay great, have an amazing night, and we'll see you again tomorrow evening by 7:30. Thank you very much, everyone.